Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is all about trimming and the 3 methods that I utilize to trim. The plant featured in today's video is Heterananthera zoisterfolia, otherwise known as stargrass in the United States, so from here on out in the video I will refer to it as stargrass. A fantastic aquarium plant has a lot of similarities with almost every other carpeting plant in the fact that it will eventually grow too tall, thusly creating a very confusing situation for most people on what to do and how to trim it. Being a carpeting plant, it will spread out throughout the aquarium, basically cover all of your substrate so that you don't necessarily ever have to see substrate ever again. One of the effects of that is that it will eventually compound and grow upwards because it is, of course, trying to get to the light and also continuing to propagate. Starting out, the very first method I have here is the very meticulous and slow process of peeling back the plant and trimming stem by stem by stem. Now, some of the finer root and finer leaved plants out there, like dwarf baby tears, for example, it is fairly difficult to go about this method, but not impossible. I have definitely done it in the past, and it's not something I would recommend. It generally will just take up way too much of your time. With a plant like this, though, going through and trimming will take a good amount of time, but it can be worthwhile to be specifically trimming things back and not cut any other kind of plants that may or may not be stuck in the mix. Also, there are a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot of baby shrimp that are hanging out in this bush. And it's going to be very important to make sure that I don't mess with them too much. And I definitely don't want to cut any adult shrimp. That has happened in the past. And I also, I felt pretty bad about it and didn't really want to be a part of that. This method will require some of the fine trimming scissors, which you kind of see me using here, which are extremely useful little tool, I would have to admit. They are a little bit expensive, but I honestly feel like, purchasing a pair is a worthwhile investment because they will last years and years and years, especially if you dry them off and just keep them in a nice, safe place. But that's the only tooling you'll need. One of the main positives is that you can be very meticulous with this and take your time and realistically come out with something that won't look that bad, will basically still have a lot of appeal to the eye, a lot of appeal to maintaining your aquarium this way. But one of the big monster downsides to this is it takes a ton of time. You will be messing with this for a long, long time, especially if it's been a month like this between trimming. And, for those of us that don't have this kind of time, it can really add up and become let's be honest here. It can become a detriment to your everyday life if you're spending this much time trimming. Moving on to my second method, which I commonly refer to as pinch and pull. You can see me just kind of throw away the scissors here and start finding plants, pinching them, and pulling them out. It's pretty straightforward. We're actually just going to remove the whole plant, even with the roots. We're not going to leave the bottom of the plant at all because essentially I don't want the plant to be there at all. So it's sort of like pulling weeds. I guess I could have called it pulling weeds, but one of the main reasons I would utilize this is to eliminate a plant from an area. I don't want it to be there anymore, and it actually is quite a rapid way to actually go about trimming while still being able to tell what's going on, even though you don't have line of sight to see where you're going. Oftentimes I have to feel around in my tank, reaching back far away to where I can't necessarily see what's going on, and I can utilize my fingers to kind of feel and make sure all I'm doing is actually trimming the plant. I do maintain my thumbnail to be a little bit longer than the rest of my nails, which are cut short, in order to utilize this on a regular basis. It is something that costs no money. You don't really need anything to do it, and you can utilize this with almost every single plant out there, regardless of how durable it is or not. though there are some out there that it does become fairly difficult to utilize this, and you probably will have to go back to the scissors. As I mentioned, some of the positives are if you don't have line of sight, it makes it much easier to make sure that you are actually trimming a plant. B, it costs nothing, but also it is kind of sloppy. So that is sort of the downside. It is kind of sloppy, but it does help. You can continue to run your aquarium at the same time and not cause as big of a mess, because most of the plants that you're grabbing, you're going to be able to pull them right out of the tank just like that. And you know, that is something I utilize on a regular basis because my hands are typically attached to the ends of my arms and I don't have to really go anywhere to find anything. Pinch and pull can be utilized with a pair of tweezers. Wanted to make sure to show this to you because it could be a very useful tool as you move along with your aquascaping and you need to remove individual plants from an area, but you can't get your big old clunky fingers in there. It is something that can come in quite handy. Just make sure that you do have a nice pair of tweezers. Doesn't really matter what company you got them from, just make sure that they're in good shape, because if you can't pinch right down at the base and pull the plant out, you end up just clipping the top off. So hopefully that's a little tip that could help out with your aquascaping. Our third and most wild type of trimming is pretty clearly named the hack and slash. As you can see here, you will need some large scissors, large long-handled scissors, and just hack it down to the nub. Obviously, this is the fastest, this is the simplest, and probably most commonly used method for most people is to just cut it away like crazy down to the nub. And as you can see, slowly but surely work my way around to the other side and have to transition back from it. It's not something I use very often. It's not something I am regularly doing, but it is something that could be useful to people out there that maybe you need to move quickly through your tank, get everything trimmed. It's not the worst thing in the world. The plants will recover relatively quickly, but one of the big downsides is that it will look bad for probably the better part of 2 weeks. It definitely is the least technical of them all. It is pretty simple, as I mentioned, and something that everybody could do. As we move along in the video here, it's pretty obvious to see that I'm using all three of these in conjunction on a regular basis as I work my way around the tank. This is a 240-gallon aquarium that is 8 feet long, so this is occupying a lot of space. So as you can see, I'm utilizing all three techniques to just get this all cleared out and get it ready to go for the next growing phase as it grows in. So I use all three. Maybe somebody out there uses only one, and that's totally cool. It's a great way to go about it. But more often than not, I have to use all three of the techniques on a regular basis, and you know, overall, I still love this hobby, and I'm always trying to find new and creative ways. So if you happen to have a new creative way, let me know about it. Post it down in the comments. Let me know what kind of crazy methods of trimming you use. Maybe you use a beard trimmer or something in your aquarium. I've seen people do that on the internet. Hopefully these three tips helped you out, and maybe it was just a fun little adventure to be on. If it was, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, do all the YouTube stuff. Maybe take a minute to think if you want to join our community here by hitting the join button on YouTube or heading over to Patreon and checking out our Patreon page, and which will give you access to the Discord, which is kind of a 24-hour chat room that you could check it out. And I much appreciate you coming by. So I will talk to you in the next video, whenever that is, which is probably pretty soon. All right. Later.